USS Enterprise, CVN-80. The most famous name in naval history belongs to a ship that no longer exists. USS Enterprise. 9 ships have carried that name over 250 years. 3 of them were aircraft carriers. The last one, the world's first nuclear-powered carrier, served for 51 years before the Navy finally retired it in 2012. That should have been the end of the story. But on the same day they announced the ship's retirement, they announced something else. They were building another one. And they weren't just honoring the name. They were melting down 35,000 pounds of steel from the old Enterprise and welding it into the hull of the new one. Right now, in a dry dock in Virginia, that ship is taking shape. CVN-80, the 3rd aircraft carrier to bear the name Enterprise. When it enters service, it will carry pieces of every Enterprise that came before it, including 4 portholes from the original, the one that fought in World War II. This is the story of why the Navy refuses to let this name die, and what the next Enterprise will become. Why this name? No other ship name in the U.S. Navy has been used 9 times. No other aircraft carrier name has been used 3 times. Enterprise stands alone. The name itself means a bold undertaking, a willingness to take on difficult ventures. The Navy chose it for the first time in 1775 for a sloop captured from the British during the Revolutionary War. They've chosen it 8 times since, and every ship that carried the name seemed to earn it. But what makes Enterprise different from other legendary names isn't just how often it's been used. It's that every Enterprise has mattered. The schooner that fought in the Barbary Wars, the sloop that battled pirates in the Caribbean, the carrier that became the most decorated ship in World War II, the nuclear pioneer that served through the Cuban Missile Crisis, Vietnam, and the War on Terror. Other famous ship names get reused because of tradition. Enterprise gets reused because every ship that carried the name proved worthy of it. CVN-80 will be the first American supercarrier not named after a person since USS America was commissioned in 1966. Every other carrier in the fleet is named after a president, a politician, or a military leader. Enterprise is named after an idea. That's why the Navy keeps coming back to it. CV-6, the legend. The aircraft carrier that made the name legendary was CV-6. Commissioned in 1938, just 3 years before the attack on Pearl Harbor. When Japanese planes struck Hawaii on December 7, 1941, Enterprise was at sea, returning from a mission to deliver aircraft to Wake Island. She was scheduled to arrive the day before. Bad weather delayed her. That delay saved the ship. Within hours of the attack, Enterprise aircraft were searching for the Japanese fleet. Within days, she was the only thing standing between Japan and total control of the Pacific. What followed was the most remarkable combat record of any ship in American history. Enterprise fought in almost every major naval battle of the Pacific War: Midway, the Eastern Solomons, Santa Cruz, the Philippine Sea, Leyte Gulf. She was hit by bombs. She was hit by kamikazes. Her deck was smashed. Her island was wrecked. Her crew was killed. And every time, she came back. The Japanese reported sinking her 3 times. 3 times, they were wrong. Her crew started calling themselves the Big E and painted a scoreboard on the island tracking enemy ships and aircraft destroyed. By the end of the war, Enterprise had earned 20 battle stars, more than any other U.S. ship. She had sailed 275,000 miles. Her air groups had destroyed 911 enemy aircraft and sunk 71 ships. When the fighting stopped, there was a campaign to save her. Veterans raised money. Citizens wrote letters. They wanted to turn the Big E into a museum, a permanent monument to what she'd done. It didn't work. The Navy decided the cost of preservation was too high. In 1958, Enterprise was sold for scrap. The most decorated ship in American history was cut apart and melted down. But 4 of her portholes were saved. They sat in storage for decades, waiting for a ship worthy of carrying them. That ship is now under construction. CVN-65, the Pioneer. 3 years after CV-6 was scrapped, the Navy commissioned a new Enterprise. This one would change naval warfare forever. CVN-65 was the world's first nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. Commissioned in 1961, she was powered by 8 nuclear reactors, more than any warship before or since. She could sail for years without refueling. She could generate enough electricity to power a small city. She was proof that nuclear propulsion worked at scale. Her first major test came quickly. In October 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis brought the world to the edge of nuclear war. Enterprise was part of the naval blockade that surrounded Cuba, ready to enforce the quarantine or launch strikes if the situation escalated. For 13 days, she waited. The crisis passed, but Enterprise had proven she could deploy anywhere, stay as long as needed, and strike if ordered. Over the next 5 decades, she deployed to every ocean on Earth. Vietnam. She launched thousands of combat sorties against targets in North Vietnam, her aircraft flying missions day and night for months at a time. The Mediterranean. She responded to crises in Lebanon, Libya, and the Balkans. The Persian Gulf. She supported operations in Iraq and Afghanistan, launching strikes against targets thousands of miles from the nearest American base. In 1964, she completed Operation Sea Orbit, a 30,000-mile voyage around the world without refueling, proving that nuclear carriers could operate indefinitely without logistical support. CVN-65 served for 51 consecutive years. No other aircraft carrier in history has served longer. When she was finally retired in 2012, she had completed 25 deployments, supported operations in every major conflict since her commissioning, and trained generations of naval aviators. On December 1, 2012, the Navy held her inactivation ceremony in Norfolk. Thousands of sailors who had served aboard her came to say goodbye, and during that ceremony, the Secretary of the Navy made an announcement. The next Ford-class carrier, CVN-80, would be named Enterprise. The passing of the torch. The timing was deliberate. The Navy didn't wait weeks or months to announce what would carry the name next. They announced it the same day they retired the old one. That's not how ship naming usually works. Names are typically announced years in advance, chosen through a political process that balances tradition with the need to honor living or recently deceased leaders. But Enterprise was different. The Navy wanted to make clear that this name wasn't ending. It was being passed forward. What followed was a 5-year process to dismantle CVN-65. Over 1,000 shipbuilders at Newport News worked to defuel her 8 nuclear reactors, deactivate her propulsion systems, and prepare the hull for disposal. It was the first time the Navy had ever decommissioned a nuclear carrier, and they learned lessons that will apply to every Nimitz-class retirement in the decades ahead. But they also saved what they could. 35,000 pounds of steel was cut from the CVN-65's hull, melted down, and reforged into plates for CVN-80. The first of that steel was incorporated into the new ship in 2019. By the time construction is complete, the old Enterprise will be physically present in the new one. And the 4 portholes from CV-6, the ones saved when the World War II carrier was scrapped in 1958, will be installed in CVN-80 as well. 3 ships, 3 generations, 1 name. And now pieces of all of them will sail together. The physical inheritance. The steel isn't symbolic, it's structural. When shipbuilders at Newport News cut plates from CVN-65, they weren't collecting souvenirs. They were recovering material that meets the Navy's specifications for carrier construction. That steel was inspected, tested, and certified before being melted down and recast into plates for CVN-80. The process took years. As of 2022, 20,000 pounds had been incorporated into the ship. The remaining 15,000 pounds will follow as construction continues. By the time CVN-80 is complete, more than 17 tons of her predecessor will be built into her hull. The portholes from CV-6 require different treatment. They are original components, glass and brass fittings that have survived since 1938. They'll be installed in CVN-80 not as structural elements, but as historical artifacts, visible reminders of where the ship's lineage began. There's also a human element to the inheritance. At the keel-laying ceremony in August 2022, the ship's sponsors, Olympic gold medalists Katie Ledecky and Simone Biles, had their initials welded into steel plates that will be permanently affixed to the ship. Veterans from CV-6 and CVN-65 attended the ceremony, watching a new generation of shipbuilders continue what their ships had started. The Undersecretary of the Navy spoke at the ceremony. He told the shipbuilders that every cut of steel, every wrench turned, and every challenge encountered were steps towards strengthening the nation. The workers building CVN-80 aren't just constructing a ship. They're continuing a legacy that stretches back to 1938, and in a sense, to 1775. What CVN-80 will be. The new Enterprise will be the third Gerald R. IV-class carrier, the most advanced warships ever built. She'll displace approximately 100,000 tons at full load. Her flight deck will stretch over 1,100 feet, large enough to operate more than 75 aircraft simultaneously. 2 A-1B nuclear reactors will provide propulsion and generate 3 times more electrical power than the previous generation of carriers. That electrical capacity matters. The Ford class was designed not just for current technology, but for systems that haven't been invented yet. The most significant upgrade is the launch system. For decades, carriers used steam catapults to throw aircraft off the deck. Violent, maintenance-heavy machines that required constant attention. CVN-80 will use the Electromagnetic Aircraft Launch System, or EMALS. Instead of steam, it uses electromagnetic force to accelerate aircraft smoothly and precisely. The system can be tuned for any aircraft weight, from heavy strike fighters to lightweight drones. It reduces stress on airframes, and it can launch aircraft carrier faster than steam ever could. The Ford class is designed to generate 33% more sorties than Nimitz-class carriers, meaning more aircraft in the air, more often, for longer. CVN-80 will also be the first aircraft carrier built entirely through digital processes. Previous carriers were designed on paper and built from physical blueprints. CVN-80's design exists as a 3-dimensional digital model. Shipbuilders work from tablets and laptops, not paper drawings. The Navy calls it integrated digital shipbuilding, and it's expected to reduce construction. Her air wing will likely include F-35C Lightning IIs for stealth strike missions, FA-18 Super Hornets for multi-role operations, EA-18G Growlers for electronic warfare, and E-2D Advanced Hawkeyes for airborne early warning. She'll also operate the MQ-25 Stingray, an unmanned tanker drone that extends the range of her strike aircraft. And because she was designed with growth margins for electrical power and physical space, she can accommodate systems that don't exist yet, including directed energy weapons, which require massive amounts of electricity to operate. When CVN-80 enters service, she'll replace USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, which has been operating since 1977. The Eisenhower is one of the oldest carriers in the fleet. Enterprise will serve for at least 50 years, meaning she'll still be operating in the 2080s. The people building it. Aircraft carriers aren't built by machines. They're built by people. Newport News Shipbuilding employs approximately 25,000 workers. It's the only shipyard in the United States capable of building nuclear-powered aircraft carriers. Every carrier in the current fleet was constructed there. and CVN-80 is no exception. But the economic impact extends far beyond Virginia. The carrier program supports an estimated 130,000 jobs across 46 states. Steel mills, electronics manufacturers, component suppliers, nuclear specialists, all of them contribute to building a single ship. The contract for CVN-80 was unusual. In 2019, the Navy awarded a single contract for 2 carriers, Enterprise and her sister ship, the future USS Doris Miller. The combined price was approximately $15 billion. By buying both ships together, the Navy saved an estimated $4 billion, stabilizing the industrial base and allowing suppliers to plan years of production in advance. Right now, both carriers are being built in the same dry dock at Newport News. It's the first time 2 Ford-class carriers have been constructed simultaneously. Workers move between the 2 hulls, applying lessons from one ship to the other in real time. Construction began with the first cut of steel in August 2017. The keel was laid in April 2022, 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The ship is expected to launch in late 2025 and deliver to the Navy in 2030. 9 ships have carried the name Enterprise. The first was a captured British sloop in 1775. The most recent is a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered supercarrier taking shape in a Virginia dry dock. Between them, a schooner that fought pirates, a carrier that won World War II, and a nuclear pioneer that served for half a century. CVN-80 will carry pieces of all of them. Steel from the Cold War carrier, portholes from the World War II legend, and a name that has meant the same thing for 250 years. A bold undertaking, a willingness to take risks, a refusal to quit. When the new Enterprise finally sails, she won't just be the most advanced aircraft carrier ever built. She'll be the continuation of something that started before the United States was a country. That's why the Navy keeps building ships called Enterprise, because the name has earned the right to keep coming back. If you want to see how 5,000 people actually live on a carrier like this one, how they eat, sleep, and work in the middle of the ocean, watch How 5,000 People Live on a $13 billion Aircraft Carrier next.